My mother tried to make me go to rehab, but I said no, no, no. Welcome to the Sober Cappy YouTube channel, coming to you live from Van Gogh's Field with Irises. I'd like to say this is my first take, but it's more like my 38th. And I'd like to say I was exaggerating, but I'm really not. That rehab song marked the beginning of the end almost 2 years ago, but it was really almost 10 years ago that I quit for 3.5 years. I'd had my rock bottom almost a year prior to that, but sometimes it takes a little while to take, and sometimes you need to drink through it. So it really wasn't until I was in the hospital with a severe intestinal infection that had really progressed called diverticulitis, and it was unrelated to alcohol, but I declared I never wanted to be in that kind of pain again, and certainly never self-inflict any kind of pain on myself. So I pretty much did it on my own, and I felt 100% physically for that 3.5 years. Never had so much as a sniffle. But, mentally it was a pretty mundane existence, and it ultimately led to me playing a little game based on the movie Wedding Crashers that I call Just a Sip, Just for a Second, Just to See How It Feels. And it felt pretty good, and turned out I could drink normally, just not for long. And within a couple weeks, I was returning back to my old habits and knew I was going to need to quit again. And you'd think I could do that pretty easily, having just done so for 3.5 years. But they actually say when you relapse after a long period of sobriety, it's actually harder to quit again. And it's been 6 years since. On the bright side of a slip, they say SLIP stands for some learning and progress. And I've learned a lot in these 6 years. Probably the biggest lesson was don't buy a pizza shop 50 yards from a liquor store. Also, don't buy one if you're a people-pleasing perfectionist. And back to that rehab song, it was 2 years ago, Halloween morning, that my mother and sister showed up at my door unexpectedly. My sister had heard from some locals that I was slurring at the pizza shop. And coincidentally, I had just decided that night that I was going to drink my face off to the point I'd never want to drink again. They say when a kid wants to start smoking, the parent should have the kid smoke so many cigarettes they never want to smoke again. I don't know if that was just an urban legend or not, but I really tried this thing, and I never got so sick as I did at 3 a.m. that morning. And I never looked so bad as when my mother walked through that door. So she really did try to make me go to rehab, and I really did say no, 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 but I promised to get help. And my friend Amy hooked me up with an online Zoom sobriety support community where I was a lurker, or I prefer to say learner, for about 3 to 4 months. Tremendously improved my listening skills, FYI, ladies. And, Amy would text me and say, when are you going to share? And I said, no way. There was a couple hundred people on those calls. And like most, I feared public speaking and had no intention of it until a woman, I'll never forget the night, a woman named Molly shared for just 10 seconds, pretty much just said her name and how many days of sobriety she had, which was only around 10. And I said, whoa. It can be just that easy. You don't have to share for the full 3 minutes they allow, and it doesn't have to be perfect. So I raised my hand and I babbled for a couple minutes, and I was shaking like a leaf, but made it through. And probably the hardest thing I'd ever done sober, at least since I was 18. I didn't drink till actually 3 months into college, which is a story for another day. But when that call ended and I was alone, I just broke down. I was sobbing, convulsing. It was amazingly cathartic, and I shared frequently ever since then. And every time I did, it was equally, I had this just euphoric feeling go through me. And it led me to doing the work, which includes therapy and coaching. They say therapy's for the past, coaching's for the future. I like to say sharing's for the present, but also helps with the past and with the future. And it's basically, and I should say I'm now on day 218, going to infinity. And it's allowed me to be well on my way to achieving emotional sobriety, which they say is accepting life on life's terms, which really means accepting emotions without having to numb them and establishing deep conversations and connections. And I add that it means permission to enjoy life sober, which I really have gained through this process. And I've now accumulated through sharing and listening. I've got more sobriety tips than I have golf tips, and I've got a lot of golf tips. And I love to share, my sobriety tips with the world. And to that end, now that I've found my voice through sharing, I'm going to be starting a podcast conveniently called Cappy Hour. Capella's my last name, and Cappy was always my crazy drinking persona. Now it's my sober persona. So, I'll be bringing on some great guests, and we'll talk about stories of perseverance and resilience, which I think is the key to beating this monster and the key to winning at life. And we're going to have a lot of fun variety. And then I'll be sharing my tips not only on the podcast, but also through the course of 5-minute YouTube videos and shorter Instagram videos, where I'm also known as Sober Cappy. So I hope you'll like, share, subscribe on all those platforms. And I hope you'll, join me for the journey.